Hariam Shri Krishna. Namaskara to everybody. Namaskara Maheshwari. Hariam Shri Krishna.
Namaskara Shikantore.
Hariam Shri Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna.
We'll wait for Acharya to join and then we could get started. Hariam Shri Krishna.
Gurubhyo Namaha. Shuklambaradharam Vishnum Shashivaranam Chaturbhujam Navadanam Dhyane Sarvabhighnopashantaye Sarvabhignaprashamanam Sarvasiddhikaram Param Sarvajiva Pranetaram Vande Vijedam Harim. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to everyone. Today's session of Jeevana Dharma. Hope you are all ready to start the session. First of all, let us learn a shloka of today's Vishesha shloka. Each shloka we are selecting that kind of very useful in a daily basis. We can definitely connect ourselves by chanting some these shlokas, whatever we are learning in the sessions of Jeevana Dharma, to attain the grace of Lord and feel connected. Today's shloka is kind of auspicious as well. I request our team to teach you the shloka first, then let us go with the brief meaning and the next step of our today's session.
Hari Om Shri Krishna Namaha. Namaskara to everybody. As we can see the shloka on the screen, we'll quickly go through once, then we'll see the pronunciation. Chaladdalaya vrukshaya sarvadashrita vishnave bodhi sattvaya devaya ashvathaya namo namaha. Yeah, first we'll quickly see the pronunciation of the each and every letter. Chaladdalaya vrukshaya. Till here, like first quarter. Chaladdalaya, please make sure that the two das are there. These two das are the first das. That means alpa prana. We have to stress on it, but the stress should not like the mahaprana stress. Yeah, for your reference, I request you to please keep the palm closer to your mouth, and you have to stress on the da. Chaladdala, like, but you should not feel the air blow for the da through your palm. Chaladdalaya vrukshaya. Vriksha, please make sure that the va is having a ritva, the r dot. For the r dot, this is the ritva. We need to pronounce it as like short r sound should come. Vriksha, place for the ksha. We have to roll our tongue, the tip of the tongue, try to touch to the palate. Vrukshaya sarvadashrita vishnave. Sarvadashrita, ra is having va. As another letter is added, this is the va sanyukta akshara. We need to stress on the va. Don't pronounce it as the rolling ra, like sarva, sarva, sarvadashrita. First sha is having ra sanyukta akshara. For the first sha, this is the shankara sha, first sha. Tip of the tongue should be straight. Don't bring the sa sound. Sarvadashrita, sarvadashrita, vishnave. Again the second sha and na For these two letters, we need to roll our tongue. The tip of the tongue try to touch to the palate, and the last letter, Va is A related letters. All the A and O related letters, we need to try to say long. In Sanskrita, there is no short A or short O. Vishnave Bodhi Sattvaya Vriksha, Bodhi Sattvaya Devaya. Till here, the another quarter is over. Bodhi, Dha is Mahaprana. We need to stress on the Dha. Please keep the palm closer and feel the air blow for the Dha. Sattvaya, Ta is having Va is added as a Sanyukta Akshara. We need to stress on the Va to hear the clear pronunciation of the each and every letter pronunciation. Bodhi Sattvaya Devaya. Move to the last quarter. Ashvathaya Namo Namaha. Ashvatha. Here first Sha is having a Va Sanyukta Akshara. We need to stress on the Va. Ta is Alpa Prana, first one. For that Mahaprana Tha, we need to stress bit more, such a way we can feel the air blow through our palm. Please cross check by keeping the palm and feel the air blow for the Mahaprana stress through your palm. Ashvathaya Namo Namaha. Harihi Om Shri Krishna Namaha. We'll go through the full shloka once again, then do quarter by quarter, like a line by line, then full shloka. Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Bodhi Sattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha. First we'll do pada by pada, that's quarter by quarter. Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Sarvadashrita Vishnave Sarvadashrita Vishnave Bodhisattvaya Devaya Bodhisattvaya Devaya Bodhisattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha Ashvathaya Namo Namaha Ashvathaya Namo Namaha. Harihi Om. Now we'll do line by line, that is Pankti by Pankti. Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Bodhisattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha Bodhisattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha Bodhisattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha. Now we'll do the complete shloka. Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Bodhisattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Bodhisattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha Chaladdalaya Vrukshaya Sarvadashrita Vishnave Bodhisattvaya Devaya Ashvathaya Namo Namaha. Hari Shri Krishnaya Namaha.
Namaste. Thanks to all the volunteers for your help. And now this shloka, praising the presence of Lord in one of the auspicious trees called Ashwatha. Krishna's statement is like that, Ashwatha Sarva Vrikshanam Urdhvamulam Adhashakham Ashwatham Prapuh Avyayam. Two places in Gita also we find the name of Ashwatha, presence of Lord over there, because we find the Prana Shakti, oxygen. We can have more in the premises of Ashwatha Vriksha. We know that grows like anything, the huge tree going to live for several hundreds of years. Most of the scriptures, they prize Ashwatha Vriksha like anything. Go there very early morning and do meditate. You find the good health and the ultimate grace of God as well. Jainism, Buddhism, and also in our Sanatana Dharma, we have very important respect for Ashwatha Vriksha. Chaladdalaya Vrikshaya. Always we find the tree itself is kind of vibrant. Chalanam will be there. Hundreds of, thousands of leaves, of course. Every couple of weeks, Ashwatha gets the new leaves coming and old will be gone for sure. Constantly we find the changes in Ashwatha tree. Sarvadashrita Vishnave, always the presence of Lord will be there. Bodhisattvaya Devaya, which gives the proper knowledge about God, helps us to come out of the lust. Especially, we can find the more concentration over there. Saptashvathe vidhivate padakshina namaskritihi. It is suggested to have 7 rounds of pradakshina near Ashwatha. It is also called as the Pippala, another name. I'm not sure the people is the actual name or originated from English, but the Pippala is Samskrita name and Ashwatha also the original name of the Ashwatha. So what we have to do with the shloka? It is suggested every day morning to do the pradakshina to get rid of especially the Shani dosha or any kind of grahachara that related to our previous life, the Purva Janma karma. So that may generate something, the anugraha of Lord, to get the good health especially. During night time, our belief is not supposed to go around near the Ashwatha tree during nights, because whatever I heard, if that is what producing the carbon dioxide during night time more, and then during day, this is the only tree produces large amount of oxygen all the time, and also going to live for several hundreds of years. So which we need the pleasant atmosphere and fresh air to live peaceful life. The root of Ashwatha goes all the way around, and so there are so many other benefits. We can definitely search and look the benefit out of it by doing our own research. So our scriptures, of course, they talk a lot about Ashwatha tree. Now let us learn. We will learn this sloka, and at least we don't find the presence of Ashwatha everywhere all the time, but we can definitely have the smaranam of Lord Ashwatha. The meaning also very interesting, which not like a permanent. Every time we find the changes. Sometimes, for example, if you look at the mango tree or some other tree, the changes not regularly or very constantly, but the Ashwatha every couple of weeks you find the changes, the new leaves are coming and old leaves are falling down. So that is our life also. Nothing is permanent. We have to go through several lives. Even this life also, our childhood goes, and the young age, then the old age. These are all the changes we have to go through. So we are praying, Lord, to bless Bodhisattvaya, to give the right knowledge and keep us always alert to stay in the path of Dharma. Okay, now last session I have mentioned something about, now I'm going to talk about the dress. What kind of prashasta vastram we have to wear. Well, now if you look at the history of our like an Indian style of living, Sanatana Dharma, we have adopted so many things. For example, if you look at the history of, like in the modern, the dress, the shirt or pant, we don't know where it has come from or when it has started. But if you look at the history, the modern history, there is a person so who invented, I heard Jacob Davis, the pant. Before that, we call it as the trouser. So it was the military dress before. Now people, they felt it is convenient to wear, so we got attracted. But there are two sets. One is the dhoti, the kacham we wear. So this is from our traditional lifestyle. The ladies, we have we consider the sari as the traditional dress. And nowadays the girls, they do wear the salwar kameez or what you call the chudidar. So interestingly, some of them originated some area, the contribution of Mughals imported to India. We have adopted somewhere around the first the decade of 19th century. Now slowly our lifestyle, we are getting updated or something. The question comes, during the puja or some traditional some events, what kind of dress we supposed to wear? And not only the dress, how it has to be, right? That is what the most important. Most of the times, I heard that girls, they say that we don't feel comfortable wearing sari. But if you look at, there is a reason I don't interfere and I don't go very give the suggestion you must wear this dress, otherwise I'm not going to perform the wedding rituals or some pujas, because I feel as that is very personal. Even of course they have to feel comfortable, and we hope that is the duty of all mothers to teach their girls how they have to dress properly and what is the important and what is the reason behind it. And these are all some, I feel that is dharma of a family life, or in very the common word we can say as the common sense, right? Of course. So we have to feel comfortable, one thing, and also we have to look decent. There are two parts. Now look at the Shastra, some specific words about the wearing the clothes and related to that subject. For example, sari we call, in Kannada we call as sire. You know what, interestingly, there is no such word in Sanskrita. We may relate to the Shatika, Uttariya, Antariya. It's like an inner dress in the shawl we call as. So that kind of dress, the name we find. But in Sanskrit also, I did not find the sire related word in Sanskrit. The reason is Kausheya Pita Vasanam. We find some shlokas, what kind of dress we wear, we imagine during the dhyana are the Devi, Mahalakshmi, Saraswati, Parvati wearing. Interesting. But if you look at the history of our own, like, several parts of India, the Karnataka, the dress code or the style is different. The Kerala, it has its own. If you look at the all the way north, like, for example, the Gujarat, the sari, whatever they wear, the style they do have their own style. In Karnataka itself, in the Portuguese, they do wear their own style. And interestingly, like in some other places in the Orissa, for example, the Manipura, they call as the Panik. And Nagaland, you call as Alubustu or something. So there is like some traditional belief or the like in a lineage we find. But the Shastras, they give some guidelines, what kind of dress code we should have. Nagnasya Malavad Vasa, Nagnakaupi na Kevalah, Nagnakashaja Vasasya, Nagnascha Ardrapatasprutaha. We are not supposed to wear the cloth which is very dirty. Some people, for example, it is the muddy vastra we keep for puja purpose only. Yes, there is like some suggestion from our Shastra Grantha. So what kind of clothes we have to wear? There are 4 categories. One is like our like a day-to-day life, the casual vastram, the dress we wear. 3 other parts. One is the night during the sleeping dress, it has to be separate. And Anyad Rathyasu Devanam Archayam. During the travel, we have to have separate clothing. And Archayam Devanam, during the puja, Sandhya Vandana, some religious practices, we have to have separate dress. Now, 4 categories. One is the regular. Another one is the sleeping dress. Next one is travel dress. The 4th one is the puja dress. It has to be kind of kept separately. That is what they suggest. The most importantly, the puja dress, we are not supposed to use for anything else or extra. And some people, they say like, this is the puja vastra. Once in 4 days, I do wash. Is that okay? But if you look at the Sadachara Smriti, Acharya says, Vasitva vasa achamyam prokshachamya cha mantratah. We have to wash the clothes every day. That means if you like wash the clothes and we have to dry it, then wear. Wet cloth also it is considered as suggested as like nagnascha ardra patasprataha. It is like kind of considered as naked if you wear the completely like wet cloth. It is also strictly prohibited from our scriptures and also not good for health as well. And some colors. So the mostly the suggested shukla vasa, the new cloth. Sometimes people they feel as, oh, this is the new very like fresh one I can wear right away. No. Most of the granthas, especially sutra granthas, grihya sutras, they suggest ishad dhautam. Even though it is new cloth, it is considered as acceptable when you wash the cloth at least once. The first time wash is the most required here, the most requirement. So that the first buy the cloth and wash it, then dry it, then it is considered as the new clothes. Okay, without washing, we are not supposed to wear any clothes. So that is what we find among our Shastra Granthas. And the color, the mostly Shukla Vasaha, that white or the yellow, it is mostly suggested color. Nowadays, all colors are accepted. So because we need varieties and somehow it is there. The availability also like that only. And it is so easy to maintain sometimes. All other colors, sometimes, for example, there are so many colors, including the red color has so many varieties. Sometimes some colors are like very not called as the Sattvika, red color. If it is the too dark red or something like we feel uncomfortable to see, that kind of red is not suggested. It is called as the Rajasa. Always the black dress, it is most of the places in our Puranas also, Vrithatasya Mahayajnaha Neelavaso Bibharthiyaha. The Neelavasa, the dark black color. The black color dress is considered as the tamasa. Maybe some other reason. For example, you can say the black color attracts the heat, right? We may not feel comfortable when it may not good for our skin and our body, and it may impact our mind so that the meditation is not so easy. So that they suggest as like to wear all the time other clothes other than not the black color. And another most important thing is Naika Vastre Rijak Kuryat Shraddha Bhojana Satkriyaha during Shraddha or any Punya Karma as well, the puja, japa, tarpana. Always we have to have the two clothes. This is for men especially. One cloth is not considered as the nagna, the naked one. Like so, if you are wearing, also it is considered as you are not wearing any clothes at all. So that always it is suggested the two, vastram and also the anga vastram. So another thing, most of the people they say that the men they have to wear the cloth, the anga vastram on the waist. No, it is nagnasya ardha patasprutaha. Ardha vastram also it is not considered. Yajnopavita vaddharyam vasaha sarvatra karmasu snane snanakale snane vandane tarpane shadhe katu dharet. Always one should have the uttariyam like this, like we are having the yajnopavita or the thread. So this is the most suggested the way of wearing the cloth. And during the tarpana, snanakala, or during the namaskara to all acharyas, gurus or devata namaskara. So the men they have to have the cloth on their waist, like we have to do according to the suggestion from our Shastra Granthas. Otherwise, the mostly we have to cover the parts of our bodies. That is what's the most important. So, tamasam nagnamekantu rajasam vasanadvajam kaupidam uttanimekantu uttamam parijakshate. So, always during the snana kala or during the while taking bath or any kind of our activities, we are not supposed to do without any vastram. Always we have to have the vastram on our body, except the small babies. So if we are not having any vastram, including the snana kala, it is considered as the tamasa. The one cloth is considered as rajasa. Minimum two clothes, it is considered as sattvika. So that is the some inputs from our Shastra Granthas. Of course, they are all suggestions that most practical and significant. So something we can relate to. But then nowadays we have modern lifestyle, and depending on the weather, how we are living, what kind of area we are living, of course we have to cover our body, we have to secure, and based on that we have to follow the dharma and also at least the common sense. We are not only looking about our comfort, something, the feeling, we have to look at the convenience of others around us, so that the decent dress is always appreciated. Of course, we all know. But the question comes during the puja time. So most of the girls, if they question, so why I have to wear sari? So I don't feel comfortable. how they wear and modern style of wearing, the fashion design, all these things. Of course, there are some confusions, but still, if you look at the traditional some inputs, and if you look at the your family elders, take their suggestions and convince our upcoming generation. For example, most of the people nowadays just wearing the pant and shirt or t-shirt all the time. They don't know at all how to wear the kacham, which is very beautiful, very secure, and very convenient as well. But they have no knowledge of it. If they start wearing, then they may feel comfortable or happy. At least for the during the puja time, I request everyone to encourage our children to wear that kind of really religious or the traditional dress, not the like in a chudidar and a salwar kameez and some most of the sherwani. All these things are there, not at all our from our Sanatana Dharma. That is the contribution of like in a Mughal or some Pakistan or that kind of areas. Of course, based on their own the weather or the lifestyle or the tradition, their convenience. Somehow we felt it is like in a most convenient. So, but at least for the during the puja time or the wedding, that kind of traditional some celebrations, let us try our best to go back to the history, and at least we can make some kind of flexibility and updates in the style of wearing it. And of course, it has to be the decent one, also the convenient one. So these are my thoughts on the dress code or the vastram. Now today's session, I want to conclude some of my thoughts. And if we have any question, of course, we can discuss. And of course, there are so many other inputs from our Shastra Granthas. I have a long list of such suggestions from our Shastras. But I feel this is good enough for today's session. And again, now let us have the dhyana of Krishna as usual. We do during all our sessions. In today's session, I request all of you to meditate for a few minutes while we are taking the name of Lord Sri Krishna. Krishna Nama Smaranam.
Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha. 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 Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha.
Thank you. Mahesh, please take over.
Om Shri Guru Raghavendraya Namaha. So in the last session, we had a discussion around science and spirituality. We'll continue that train of thought in the next several minutes that we have and extend that discussion a little bit further, linking it to some of the, of course, as we always do, linking it to some of the scriptural aspects of it. So when we spoke about the science and spirituality aspect, we saw how they complement each other and not necessarily exclude one from the other. In the same way, if I expand it now through Krishna's grace, if I now expand that same sentiment and look at this aspect of reaction versus response. Reaction versus response. Everything that we talk about from a scriptural standpoint, everything that we are learning from, everything that we are being asked or given a framework or guidelines that have been that are being shared with us. Nothing is being forced, but anything that is being shared with us. The entire aspect of that revolves around this approach we take between reaction versus response. Without this aspect of reaction versus response, there cannot be any discussion about karma, there cannot be any discussion about bhakti, there cannot be any discussion about sharanagati, there cannot be any such discussion. There cannot be any such discussion about what is righteousness, what is morality. None of this come into play at all without this mode of an understanding of reaction versus response. And the beauty of this is it stands scriptural testimony as well as it has a scientific linkage. So let's understand the two and then let's link it back. Reaction is deeply buried in who we are and the tendencies and the commonality that exists between all beings. While we don't ascribe, at least scripturally, don't ascribe to a strict direct theory of evolution, we do ascribe to a theory of karmic evolution. And that karmic evolution includes the theory of natural selection, which I'll explain a little bit more, and the theory of artificial selection as well. I'll explain these three concepts briefly. So let me first talk about karmic evolution. When we talk about karmic evolution, we don't say you go from point A to point B to point C to D. We don't say you start off with being an insect, then you gradually keep gradiating up to the next higher level. We say it's a dynamic scale. You can go either way. Where you go depends upon you. Where you go depends upon you. If I hate somebody and I've done enough good things that I deserve a human life again, but if I hate someone and I die at that moment thinking about the hate I have for this individual, who knows, I may be born as the son of this individual in my next instance. While the father may be rejoicing that he got a son, I'm actually the worst enemy because I'm doing nothing but causing harm to my father at that point. So the karmic evolution theory or the concept is pretty straightforward. You decide what you get based on what you do and how you go about in your life. And there is no set order or linearity of how you go about. You can go any way. It can keep varying. But the commonality is the reaction aspect is buried in all these beings, and that comes more from the deep inner animal type of nature that we all have within us. That is why you would have commonly heard about whenever you're reacting, we are usually reacting from a mode of avoidance, from a mode of stability, from a mode of how do I protect myself. And that's why whenever we talk about reaction, we say it's usually this fight or flight kind of a response is what we talk about when you're reacting. So reacting is deeply buried across the billions of years of our existence, and since we were manifested. Across those billions of years, we have accumulated that across our karmic lifestyles. I could have been a dog, I could have been an insect, I could have been that, I could have been a human, whatever it is, across the karmic lifestyle, this tendencies that I've accumulated is what drive my reaction. Where does then response come? Response comes where I am actually using my intellectual capacity to consciously choose. So instead of relying on my animal nature of reacting, of fight or flight, which is deep rooted in, even scientifically, it's deep rooted in our back part of the brain. From a response standpoint, I'm actually tapping more into my intellectual capacity, which means I'm tapping more into from a brain perspective, my prefrontal cortex, I'm tapping more into that to make some proper analysis and then respond. So it's choice embedded in consciousness. And that's where the scriptural aspect comes in. Because everything that we learn, everything that we read, whether it's Gita, whether it's Upanishads, whether it is these kind of sessions and all of that, you can never effect a change by a reaction mode. You can only affect a change by a response mode. And in that response mode is where you insert bhakti, you insert sharanagati. So a good example in that response mode, the reaction mode is I pick a glass of water and I drink. The response mode is I pick a glass of water, say Krishna, and then I drink. So it is in this response mode that I insert this entire aspect of bhakti, this entire aspect of spirituality, without which it won't exist. And given that our nature is action, because we are taught to avoid, as I said, rather than accept, and because avoidance has that deep-rooted animal instinct within us, which is common in all beings, whether we are a human or an animal, that commonality is there in all beings, and we tend to demonstrate that first. That is also why we tend to react more to things that are negative. We tend to form more impressions of things that happen in a negative way for us. Because at the end of the day, we want to have some stability. We want to lead a life. Through all the changes that happens in our daily life, we constantly scan it and establish a sense of control. And that establishing the sense of control is through how? By trying to avoid challenges, by trying to avoid suffering. So through all of that, we continuously develop this aspect of reaction, and we don't allow ourselves to get into this responsive mode. So I always like to think about it as, if you think about a human being, there's always this type of a lizard, squirrel, monkey kind of a mindset within us. We are either going forward or coming backward, trying to avoid, trying to grab. We are constantly nibbling at stuff. It could be nibbling at people's comments. We are constantly talking about somebody else all the time, chattering. And then there is a monkey aspect of it within us where we are constantly jumping. We are jittery. We are not stable. We don't sit in one position. We find it tough to have dhyana because there is this constant aspect that we demonstrate of this lizard, squirrel, monkey triangle within us that we constantly do it. And all this forms our tendencies or vasanas, which we ultimately continue to build upon us. And we always end up in a reaction mode. And of course, the reaction does help us because it puts you into an autopilot mode for some routine activities. But for the spiritual aspects and for the proper dharmic life, you have to bring in this response mode. And in that space of response mechanism, where you're tapping into that front part of your brain, where you are dampening the alarm signals you are sending into your brain, it is in that part is where we start inserting all aspects of spirituality. All aspects of spirituality. Now, if you think about it back, I'll link it back to the three theories I was talking about. We focus on karmic evolution. Scientifically, you can look at things as natural selection, which is individuals evolve over time, adjusting to the environment. And we constantly evolve, making decisions that are more convenient to us. We constantly evolve to prepare for the challenges coming ahead of us, which is, many of you know, is what the theory of natural selection means. Naturally, you adjust yourself to how things change. But then nowadays, you artificially adjust yourself as well. We create more different types of hybrid grains by some chemical compositions. We are now treating each other with some kind of a chemical compositions involved within us. So we are artificially inducing as well, and we are evolving in that direction. That's why you now the lifespan is much longer than it was earlier, because we are artificially making a selection as well in that. So you have a natural and an artificial selection that's happening in our life, but the karmic evolution supports both, because the karma aspect, the karmic evolution, which determines your reaction and response, says It doesn't matter whether you're evolving naturally or artificially, what you choose to do, which means what you choose to respond, what you choose to respond will decide who you become, will decide who you become. And if you choose to continuously only react, then that is what you will become. But if you choose to respond by inserting spirituality in it, that is what you become. Krishna Arpanamastu. Let's open it up for Q&A.
Yam Shri Krishna. Yeah, the bridge is open for questions through audio as well as chat. Yam Shri Krishna.
So when we were in the first session, we probably had more questions than ever. And every session, the number of questions decreases, but sometimes it increases. What that tells in a very, very responsive way, not in a reactive way, very responsive way, it tells that all of us on this journey, on this call, are gaining more and more clarity, which is exactly what the purpose should be. But if in that process of gaining clarity, if you have questions, please feel free to ask that.
This is Nagaraj Rao again, Maheshji. Namaskara.
Namaskara, sir.
Namaskara, sir. This is actually from my wife, actually, Chandrika. How, I mean, the immediate tendency is to react on any situation. Somebody says something to us or somebody does something to us, we immediate tendency is to react. How do we stop that reactionary mode and convert that to a response mode? How do we do that for ourselves?
It's a fantastic question, and the typical complexity and challenge we all go through. So when we spoke about abhyasa, repeated practice, the reason, and we spoke about thinking, reflecting, contemplating, the three aspects when we spoke in one of our sessions. We do abhyasa, we do reflect and contemplate for the simple reason that you want to start making those kind of intellectual decisions as your reactive repository. See, think about it this way logically. You have a repository within you that is usually reactive, and every time you have to act, you tap into that repository, which is the reaction mode. That is why we normally are in a reactory mode, because that is the one that where you have easy access to it. Easy access. You don't need to spend too much energy of your brain to go and tap into it. That's always readily available. So if I see a rope on the road from a distance, my immediate reaction is it could be a snake, right? It could be a snake, because I go with avoidance approach, number one. I have a fight or flight response within me, number two. Third, my reactory mode tells me, and my animal mode tells me that it could be a snake right away. So it's easily accessible. I tap into that repository pretty quickly. But then there is this other repository, which takes time to analyze. And after 5-10 minutes of analysis, I may come to the conclusion, oh, that is only a rope, it's not a snake. Because I've taken time and tapped into my longer term repository, where I've analyzed the shape, I've analyzed the fact that it's not moving, I've probably shown a light upon it, and in the light I can see that it's really not a snake at all, it's just a piece of rope. That takes time. So it's taken me 10-15 minutes to come to that conclusion. In a split second, I came to the conclusion that it was a snake. So as I start doing abhyasa. This is back to where the connection comes. As I start doing abhyasa, then what do? I am tapping more and more into this analysis mode. And as I'm tapping more and more into this analysis mode, I'm moving from that repository into this reaction repository. So I'm replacing what I have in my reaction repository with things from the longer term repository. Logically, that's how, scripturally, spiritually, that's how it works. Many of you are much more scientific masters than I am. You are probably more deep rooted in science. Even science talks the same way, correct? You have the hippocampus, that is your immediate response. Your prefrontal cortex, which takes time to respond. Alarm bells goes off because hippocampus is the one that immediately says it's a snake. The prefrontal cortex says, no, it's really not a snake. Takes time. You all probably know sympathetic nervous system says you've got to react. The parasympathetic nervous system says, no, be steady, be calm. So scientifically also that goes that route. Let's not spend too much time on it. I can spend more on that. I can spend a day on it. Let's not go there. But just to answer your question, how do you develop the mode? In the reaction mode, start replacing it with things from the longer term repository. You can never purify the water because the water has impurities already into it. What you could do is you could dilute the impurity. And how do you dilute the impurity? By adding more clean water to it. So that's what we do. Over time, you keep doing this, then your reaction becomes more cleaner. Hope that helps, sir.
Thank you so much. Really made sense now. Thank you.
Krishna, Krishna.
Is it possible to empty the reactionary repository?
Absolutely, sir. Sorry, go ahead. Complete your question.
No, that's it. Yeah, eventually, I guess.
Absolutely, you can empty the entire repository. And when you and I empty that repository, sir, we would be at the feet of Narayana in Vaikuntha. When you and I empty that repository, we would be there because we would have gained moksha, and we would be at the feet of Narayana there, serving Krishna there. But seems like a very long-fetched dream, if that's how we think about it. So what is the more practical answer to that? Surrender. Surrender. The whole concept of surrender comes from the fact that because we know that we have that impurity left within us, and because we know we cannot clear out that impurity in one lifetime or even millions of lifetimes, that is exactly why we prostrate and we offer ourselves to Krishna. Because it's only through Krishna's grace that that impurity gets taken out fully.
Beautiful answer. Thank you so much.
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.
Okay, that is nice. No more questions.
If I may, more question. Is there a time, Yogendraji?
Yeah, please go ahead.
In scientific methodologies, we accept other people's theories, like E is equal to mc square from Einstein, without having verified it ourselves. There may be other verifications of it, but have we ever verified it ourselves? How do we know it is E is equal to mc squared? It could be mc cubed, it could be mc to the power of half or 2.1 power, whatever. But we have accepted that without questioning, probably with some questioning, but accepted some other people's theories and experiences. In spirituality, why do we have trouble accepting what our scriptures say, or shastras say? Why do we question more on the spirituality front rather than while we accept readily other people's theories in science?
So let me answer that, and we have one more question in the chat, which I would recommend Yogendraji takes that. So this question, the fundamental premise that we start, in my humble view, Krishna's grace is flawed. The fundamental premise is flawed. We tend to start with the fundamental assumption, even in spirituality, that it has to mimic scientific test and validation. The difference between the two is, as you said, the scientific theories, whether it's E is equal to mc square or any of those theories, have an external experience to it. Has an external validation and verification to it. Which is why you say it's not scientific unless it follows a particular process, unless it happens in a way by which there are a set of variables that you define and you validate it, and then you come out with an explanation saying, for these set of variables under these conditions, this is what's valid, and you repeatedly run that experiment for probably thousands of times, manual, machine, everything, and then you say, generally, this is why it's valid. So the premise there is to prove out something. Spirituality, the fundamental premise is not to prove out anything. It is to prove in for yourself. It is for you to experience yourself. It's not about what anybody else thinks about you. It is what are you thinking about yourself. So it's completely internal versus external. And because we are rational beings, and we nowadays, and of course, we all go through some kind of an initial academic learning, and because we are exposed to the scientific approach much sooner, when we get on the spiritual journey, we bring that same premise into our spiritual learning as well. And we think we need to prove out to somebody else. It doesn't matter what others thinks of if Krishna can bestow his grace, or is he the supreme or not. Spiritually, it doesn't matter. Spiritually, what matters is, do I believe in it? Do I recognize it? More importantly, am I able to experience that? If I'm able to experience that, then that to me is good enough. If I'm not able to experience it, then it doesn't matter what anybody else says. So it's just the entire way of looking at it, which is why I think we mix up the two. But if we look at it from looking outside versus looking inside, hope that will drive more clarity in individuals. Krishna.
Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Okay. There is a question in the message chat. Yes. Snana kale kato dharet. So that it's very simple. Of course, the clothing and everything it is personal. Each one has their own understanding, and based on convenience we do. But when the question comes as a man, it seems practical to simple to wear one clothing, the shorts. So why the question comes in the shorts and t-shirt. So this is the modern lifestyle we have accepted. But when you take in a bath or nadi snana, let us imagine, how does it work? The traditional the bath towel, right? One towel we have to have on our waist, and one more we have to tie tightly one more towel because to secure the first towel. That is how the Kati Vastra Dharanam, it is like in what mentioned in our Shastra Granthas for well. We can apply the same rule during the regular snana at our bathroom shower as well.
Priyam Shri Krishna. I think we have
Yes.
no
Now
questions on the chat.
let us do Krishnarpanam. Ayena Mata, Manasendriyirva, Budhyatmanava, Svabhavam, Karomi, Sakalam, Parasmai, Narayana, Samarpada, Sarvam, Krishna, Panamas. Thanks. Thank you. Let us meet next session.
Priyam Shri Krishna. Thanks, Acharya and Mahesh Aru for today's session. Thanks to the SKV Gita team for helping the participants to learn the shloka from as part of today's lesson. Hariyam Shri Krishna.
Harihi Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha.
Harihi Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha.
Harihi Om Shri Krishna.
Harihi Om Shri Krishnaya.
Harihi Om Shri Krishna.
Harihi Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha.
Hariyam Shri Krishna. Yeah, we'll close this. Hariyam Shri Krishna. We'll meet in 2 weeks. Hariyam Shri Krishna.